Welcome back to Wrong Sports. If I told you being stranded in Hawaii would be something that none of us would hate, right? Of course not. It's a beautiful place with great beaches, nice people, and warm weather. But how about being stranded in Hawaii with virtually no way home and a world war starting just feet away? Because that is the insane story of what happened about 80 years ago to the San Jose State and Willamette University football teams that were looking to end their season in paradise, but almost never made it back home. But before I get into this crazy story, make sure as always you are subscribed to the channel below. If you are not already, please ring the bell too so you can get updates on brand new videos that I will be dropping in the future. You can of course check out my podcast and you can help out the channel. Please help it out on my Patreon. Link is in the description below. And finally, make sure you like and share this video and share this channel with other college sports fans. So before I get into this journey, let's cover the teams that would be historically stranded. First was the Willamette University Bearcats, which is a rather small school located in Salem, Oregon. They were and still are a part of the Northwest Conference, one of the oldest conferences still going in Division III. And in 1941, Willamette were the best of the Northwest Conference, as they had won that conference too 6 of the last 7 years, and in 1941 would win the conference again with their best showing, as they had won 5 of their 7 conference games by a combined 218 to 7 points. And were 8-1 on the year, only losing to Idaho. To reward this great team, their coach Spec Keen had organized Willamette to travel to Honolulu to play the University of Hawaii in the Shrine Football Classic. The Shrine Classic was something that Hawaii had pretty much done every year throughout the 1930s. They would schedule games versus colleges on the mainland and invite them to Honolulu over Christmas and New Year's to play a few games. Think of it as an early version of the Hawaii Bowl, except you would play another team and Hawaii. Willamette would be playing Hawaii first, then relax on the island before playing another game versus another college coming with them to Hawaii. That other team would be San Jose State College, who Hawaii was scheduled to play 2 days after their first game versus Willamette, and then Willamette would play San Jose State on December 16th. San Jose State was no stranger to the island, as they had come to Hawaii to play the Warriors in 1938, losing by 1 point. The following year, San Jose State College would get even better, as in 1939 and 1940, they had hired Pop Warner, the legend, to be an assistant coach. He would completely change their offense to a single wing, which helped the team go 24-1 over those 2 seasons, including beating the other team coming to Hawaii, Willamette, twice. San Jose State would change their coach to Ben Winkleman for the 1941 season, and he led their team to a 5-3-3 record. So now that I gave you a big background on both of the teams and their seasons this year, let's get into the trip. First, Willamette's season ended on November 20th, and after enjoying Thanksgiving that week, would start their trek to Hawaii. Willamette's team was only 25 men and their coach Spec Keen, as well as a few other Oregon officials. They first would have to take a train trip from Salem to San Francisco to meet with the San Jose State team, and then both teams would then hop on a luxury cruise ship for a several-day trip to Honolulu. When they finally got there a few days later, they would have a day or two to enjoy the beautiful beaches and all the lovely people and the food, but then they had to get ready for their games coming up in just a few days. Willamette was up first as they played Hawaii on December 6th. The crowd at the Honolulu Stadium numbered 25,000 people. It included the territorial governor of Hawaii, Joseph Poindexter, because, just a reminder, Hawaii was not a state yet until the 1950s, as well as the Lieutenant General Walter Short, the U.S. commander responsible for the defense of the U.S. military installations in Hawaii. I mention that because of obvious things that will be coming soon. But the crowd to watch the Willamette vs. Hawaii game was the largest crowd to ever watch an athletic event at the stadium in Honolulu. It was preceded by a spectacle of over a dozen school bands and a band made up of U.S. Marines. When kickoff happened, the temperature was about 85 degrees, which was about 50 degrees warmer than the Willamette team was used to at this point. I don't have too much about the game, but I do know that the heat did affect the Willamette squad, who couldn't get too much offense going and got tired late, as they would lose 20-6. With the Willamette game over, their contingent and team were ready to get some rest and also ready to get in some sightseeing and a big tour the next day. The Willamette team and the rest of their contingent were up early and waiting for a bus outside of the Moana Hotel to take them on a sightseeing tour of the island. One of their earliest stops on this tour was to be Pearl Harbor, but the bus for the tour never arrived, and both teams, Willamette and San Jose State, would soon see black smoke fill the air only several thousand feet away. A few moments later, they learned that the Japanese had attacked Pearl Harbor only a few minutes before they were to leave the hotel. According to newspaper reports, as well as reports from players who would tell stories later of this, they just watched in horror and were frozen for about an hour as they saw Japanese planes drop bombs, smoke, fire, just chaos happening. They didn't know what to do. They would eventually run back inside the hotel and hide out there for a few hours. They would quickly find out, though, that they would soon be brought in to help out. That was because the U.S. Army, who were now checking for more manpower across the island after martial law was declared in Honolulu, enlisted both football teams to fend off a possible Japanese invasion by water and land. Their first set of orders was to string barbed wire on Waikiki Beach at low tide. To defend themselves, the players were issued bolt-action Springfield rifles from World War I and given brief training, very brief training from what I've heard. Basically just point and shoot, that was what they were told. And they were told to defend the beach from a possible invasion. Yes, so within about 24 hours, these football players played a football game and were now part of the United States defense of Hawaii. Along with that, they were also assigned to a local high school in the hills above Honolulu to watch out as well for more air attacks. Authorities feared that water towers and storage tanks nearby might be targets of sabotage as well, so they told the players to defend that. The players moved into the dormitories and classrooms of a local high school and went on rotation. For the next 10 days, the players of both teams, but mostly Willamette University, took turns standing ground. The San Jose State players, meanwhile, worked with the Honolulu police and were actually honorary policemen, as they would also put up barbed wire and dig trenches on the beach too. There would also be a few women among the contingent of Willamette and San Jose State, and they went to Fort Schaefer to serve as nurses' aides. So everyone was working at this point. For the next week and a half, both teams would be a part of the war effort, until Spec Keen, the coach of Willamette, would finally get a way for everyone to go back to the mainland. He did that by negotiating both teams' passages back to California on the SS President Coolidge. This ocean liner had been used for leisure only a few weeks before this, but now had been commandeered by the military and was transporting gravely wounded servicemen from Honolulu back to the mainland, because there was a lot of them at this point. Coach Keen would persuade the captain and the U.S. Army to take both teams and their followers on this ship in exchange for helping to care for the wounded servicemen aboard. That would be accepted, and the ship would leave Hawaii on December 19th and didn't arrive in San Francisco until Christmas Day. The reason for that was because the trip was only supposed to take 4 days. Instead, it would take 3 extra days due to the ship having to zigzag around the Pacific to avoid Japanese submarines and other bombings that would be happening. The Willamette team would not stay in San Francisco very long, as they would leave for Salem the next day after Christmas to 1,000 fans who would turn up at the train station to welcome them home, as they had heard of the news the previous week. Soon after this, nearly the entire Willamette team would enlist to fight, and none of them would be killed in action. But out of the 27 Willamette players that would play on the team in 1941 and made the trip, 25 of them returned to complete their educations and went on to become football coaches, teachers, businessmen, judges, and pastors. The San Jose State College, meanwhile, would also have a few players enlist in war. I don't have full records on them and what they did after this, but they did play football in 1942, which is one of only a handful of colleges in the state of California to do so. They would stop playing after that season and would pick up the team again in 1946, because like most teams, they would lose a lot of their players to enlist in war. I don't have exact numbers, but I'm pretty sure most of them did. If not, they would help again in the war effort in California, because there would be a lot of bases and military colleges that would pop up all across the West Coast at that point. But in all, about 100 players, coaches, and officials from both schools would make the trip to Hawaii, and all 100 would help out in the war effort, and all 100 would come back to the mainland safely and unharmed, which is just incredible for people who witnessed the Pearl Harbor attack. Again, they were only a few thousand feet away from the attack, so it's just lucky that they were not killed at this point, and they weren't killed in the following 10 days when they had to help out the war effort. It's just an incredible story. If you haven't heard it before, there you go. I'm going to put more links in the description as well so you can read more about both of these teams. But thank you so much for hanging out with me as I went over 2 teams that were stranded in Hawaii at the start of World War II. Tell me in the comments below if you know more about how many players fought in World War II from the San Jose State squad, or if you know anything more about this story. Thank you again for watching, and again, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and help out my channel on my Patreon. Link is in the description below.